Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and a very warm welcome to the University of Birmingham and to this, our own very special Olympic homecoming event. As many of you will know, the university's motto, it's been our motto since 1900, has been Per Ardua ad Alta, which roughly translated means through great efforts to high things. And nothing, I think, better epitomizes the university's motto than the success of the university's Olympians in the Rio Olympics and Paralympics in 2016. Sport has always been a central part of life at the University of Birmingham, and our sportsmen and women over many years have excelled, but no year more than this year. And we took a great pride in watching our own Olympians in Rio over the summer. And we hope that we can share something in their terrific success. The last few weeks have been great weeks for this university. A couple of weeks ago, the university was associated with 3 Nobel Prizes, the Nobel Prizes in physics and in chemistry. And just as Nobel Prizes celebrate the outstanding quality of the research and of the science at the University of Birmingham, so our sporting success and the success of our current graduates and our alumni at Rio is a celebration of and a representation of that great sporting tradition in our university. So Birmingham, University of Birmingham athletes returned triumphant from Rio, having collected 4 gold, 2 silver and 1 bronze medal from the Olympics and the Paralympics. And when one thinks about the intensity of Olympic competition, this is a quite remarkable record and achievement. Now, of course, we as the university can't add to the gold medals that our Olympians have and are proudly wearing this evening. We can, however, complement it, and we are going to complement it this evening by awarding each one of them a Vice-Chancellor's medal. This is a very, very rarely awarded accolade of the university. The medal is struck and engraved by Fattorinis in the Birmingham Jewellery Quarter. And the very small number of Vice-Chancellor's medals which have been awarded over the years have been awarded to exceptional individuals, and we are delighted to be able to add to that this evening. It now gives me a very particular pleasure to welcome back to the university Simon Brotherton. Simon will be a familiar face and a familiar voice to many, I suspect all of you, as a BBC Sports commentator who doesn't really work for a living, but has the enviable job of reporting for Match the Day, 5 Live, and other BBC broadcasts. He's a proud Birmingham alumnus, and he embarks on his career in journalism and sports journalism while he was still a student here, initially joining BBC Radio West Midlands. He went on to become BBC football commentator, covering the Premier League, European and World Cup matches. But it's not just football. Simon's job has taken him all over the world, covering an exceptionally broad range of sports, including the Tour de France, World Track Cycling, as well as the Olympic and Paralympic cycling events in Rio. Simon will be leading the discussion and the Q&A session with our Olympians in a few minutes. But first I'd like to invite Simon to join me on the stage where he will introduce each of our exceptional champions and invite them to receive the Vice-Chancellor's Medal. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Simon Brotherton.
Thank you, Vice-Chancellor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The first of those exceptional individuals of whom you were just hearing is Paul Manning. Paul graduated from the University of Birmingham in Earth Sciences in 1996. Since graduating, Paul has been on the medal podium for Great Britain at an impressive 3 Olympic Games, winning a bronze medal at the Sydney Olympics in 2000, a silver medal in the Athens Olympics in 2004, and then achieving gold with a world record in the team pursuit at the Beijing Olympic Games in 2008. And I was very lucky to be there commentating on every single one of them. In addition to these tremendous achievements, Paul has won 3 World Championships, 2 Commonwealth Games gold medals, and 7 UCI Track World Cup titles. Paul's talent was retained by British Cycling when he went on to become the endurance coach for the women's team on the track. Under Paul's coaching, they've broken the team pursuit world record every single time they've gone on the track at the Olympic Games. That's both in London and in Rio this past summer. Rio 2016 was another sensational Olympics for British cycling, where Paul led the women's track team to gold medal success yet again. Please welcome Paul Manning to receive his Vice-Chancellor's Medal in recognition of his outstanding contribution to British cycling, both as an athlete and a coach. Our next 2 guests became Olympic champions together, playing in every hockey match of the Olympic Games for Great Britain. Both were part of the squad that won the first ever Olympic gold for British women's hockey. Their success in Rio has added a new level of aspiration and excitement to the University Hockey Club. Over half of the National Women's Under-21 squad are Birmingham students. And Birmingham students and alumni have earned hundreds of England and GB caps between them over the last decade. Firstly, please welcome Sophie Bray, who graduated in 2011 from psychology here at the University of Birmingham, and secondly, our current student, Lily Owsley, who returned to campus this September to continue her degree in sport, exercise, and rehabilitation sciences. Lily has made history at the university by being the first ever current student to win an Olympic gold medal. Please welcome Sophie and Lily to receive the Vice-Chancellor's Medal in recognition of their exceptional contribution to the success of Team GB and of women's hockey. Now, the University of Birmingham alumni returned from the Paralympic Games with 4 medals between them, 2 gold, a silver and a bronze as well. I'm delighted to introduce cyclist Laura Turnham now, who won a gold medal in the Tandem B 3,000 metre pursuit and bronze as well on the road in the time trial. Laura, who graduated in 2010 from physiotherapy, only took up competitive cycling while at the university, and within 6 weeks won her first medal. Ahead of Rio, Laura partnered a new pilot, Corinne Hall, and as a pair, they've been unstoppable. They set a new record in their first Paralympic appearance on the track in the 3,000 metre pursuit heat, later going on to take the gold medal in the final. Laura and Corinne then also added a bronze medal to the collection in the road time trial a week later. I'm very pleased to welcome Laura to receive the Vice-Chancellor's Medal in recognition of her remarkable achievements in women's cycling. special mention should go to alumnus Pamela Relf as well, who won gold in the mixed Cox 4 in the Paralympics. Pamela was unable to join us this evening due to a prior commitment. Ladies and gentlemen, we now move on to the second part of this evening's proceedings. You'll have the opportunity to put questions to our Olympians and Paralympians. I'm delighted to invite Professor Myra Nimmo to join the panel as well now. Professor Nimmo is Pro-Vice-Chancellor and Head of the College of Life and Environmental Sciences here at the University of Birmingham, as well as Chair of England Athletics. She's also an Olympian. Professor Nimmo has competed at the highest level in both the 100-metre hurdles and the long jump, having competed in the 1976 Olympics in Montreal and the 1974 Commonwealth Games. She's also the former Scottish national long jump record holder with a mark of 6:43. Do you see the way she leapt into the chair there? Her career, although always in higher education, has continuously involved sport, including serving on numerous bodies, including the UK Sports Council. She also led, with colleagues across the country, the development of the National Centre for Sport and Exercise Medicine, based in the Midlands, London and Sheffield. Ladies and gentlemen, your panel. Let's get to the Q&A.
Pardon?
Well, does this need turning on?
No.
No, it's on. Great. Hopefully, we've got lots of questions to put to the panel. So the more the merrier. Don't be shy. Just put your hand up. They're all ready and waiting. Just to get the ball rolling for everybody, first up, the most obvious question, I suppose, to each of you, starting at the far end perhaps, what it's been like over the last couple of months or so. You know, do people constantly stop you in the street? Do people want to talk to you about your Olympic experience? Or do they just want to get their hands on the gold medal?
I guess for me personally, having not competed and being a kind of one of the support staff for the last couple of games, it is quieter. I think the recognition goes rightly to the athletes, and there's some very successful sports. There's a lot of success out there, and I'm happy to be behind the team. And whilst I have been recognised as the guy off the telly that sort of walks funnily along the trackside, I'm quite happy with that actually, and it's quite proud to be part of it and enjoy the.
Is that the question that you get more than any other now? Why do you take 1 or 2 steps forward and 1 or 2 steps back from effectively the halfway line on the track?
What are you doing there? Yeah, that's a common theme. I won't answer that in case someone's got that question later. But yeah, I mean, just a bit of downtime. You invest so much getting to the games and time away from family. It was literally go straight back from Rio. Didn't hang around for closing ceremony to go on holiday with family and pretty much switch off. So I'm just trying to switch back onto sport and planning and thinking about athletic existence just right now.
And what about our 2 hockey players?
Yeah, since we landed, it's been kind of non-stop. Everyone want to see the medal, and I think for me, visiting the hockey clubs has been the sort of the welcome we've had at the hockey clubs, and the enthusiasm for the sport, and hearing about the numbers that have taken up the sport and how many new members all the clubs are getting has been fantastic, and yeah, really incredible.
Yeah, we kind of throughout the games we had no idea kind of how big it was becoming at home. We actually made the decision as a squad to go off social media. We actually had different phones, so I pretty much had my family's numbers, and that was pretty much it, and similar to all the girls. So for all we knew, kind of like 10 men and their dog could have been watching the games. So it was only really till the flight home that we kind of were like reading the papers, going on social media, and kind of realised like how big it had become at home, and then stepping off the plane. It's been a bit of a whirlwind since we got back, but it's just amazing that our sport's been put on the map like that.
And Laura, how about you? Have you been quite surprised by the reception to your gold medal on the track?
Yeah, I was really surprised. I didn't expect quite the hype that it seemed to have created, and I came home and the next day I went out in the street and I went into a shop and people were like, "Oh, well done, where's your medal?" And I was like, I didn't expect, I didn't know them, but they knew me, and it was a little overwhelming really, but it's great fun. I love it.
And Professor Nimmo, has it settled down a bit since you got back from Montreal in 1976? Has it calmed down now?
I can just about remember that. I think one of the things that just what Sophie was saying was, in England athletics, we've seen a huge increase in the number of registered athletes and aspects there. So in the past couple of months, there's been an increase in about 5,000 to 10,000 actually people are registering to take part in sport, and that's got to be as a result of what these guys did out in Rio.
We'll take questions in a second, honestly, but do you feel then, to a degree, a sense of responsibility, say, women's hockey? You mentioned the fact that so many people want to hear from you, the element of inspiration that you provide. Do you feel that? Do you think that there is a responsibility that comes with that gold medal to a degree?
Yeah, one of our values as a team was to inspire the future, and that was something we'd spoken about, we had meetings about, and kind of spoke about how we were going to do that and how we were going to increase participation, especially in younger people and getting them started. And we kind of thought, as a squad, the way to kind of get hockey on the map, the way to get people started is by our national team doing well. And so following this is a great period for us to kind of get into clubs, get into schools, and kind of try and, show them how good this sport can be, how exciting, how brilliant it is. And that's kind of what we've been trying to do the last few months, is just trying to get around the country and show everyone how good a sport it is. Paul,
is there an immediate knock-on effect, both after London and after Rio, that you can see around the velodrome in Manchester? Is it that obvious that people suddenly want to become involved, or were the numbers very high anyway?
I think our kind of success extends back a little bit further to Beijing cycle, really, and I think we already had a really, really busy velodrome in Manchester, so that training environment hasn't changed a lot. What we do have is a velodrome in London, a velodrome in Glasgow, a velodrome in Newport, and a new one in Derby. So suddenly the sport's grown and those centres have multiplied, and that is where the masses are going, the big influx. But I think that process probably did start post-Beijing, and it's still growing. So I endorse fully what's already been said, really, that the outreach of the athletes particularly is so powerful, and I've heard that from a few athletes, that they feel like there is a desire from them, but also an obligation to the sport and the future and the inspiration to put the effort in to that, as well as they've won the medals, but it goes above and beyond that.
Who's got the first question then? I want to raise their hand. Over there in the corner, have we got a microphone that we can just... Here it comes. Fire away.
Good evening. Congratulations to our athletes. This one is slightly a difficult question, though. Making an effort. How do you advise somebody starting? Because there are so many types of sports people can do. So like families and people starting, how do you advise them to choose which sports to go into?
How do you choose which sport?
Yes, to the professor, the head of sports.
Yeah, I would say for as long as possible, play as many sports as you can. I think to get a variety of different sports is important, and then ultimately it'll come to a point where you have to focus on one. And for me, I chose the sport that I enjoyed the most, and that was hockey. But for quite a long while, I tried to play as many sports as I could and just enjoy playing all different sports.
Laura, in cycling, quite often it's the element of talent ID comes in, doesn't it? And what athletes are physically predisposed to, because you quite often see a crossover, don't you, for example, between rowing and cycling?
Yeah, you do. It's funny talking about the impact of the Olympics and Paralympics and inspiring people to take it up the sport, because it was actually watching tandem racing in Beijing that inspired me to give it a go. And before that, I did athletics. So, yeah, you just have to try lots of different sports, and there is crossover, but, the more sport you try, the more likely you're going to find one that you're good at. So don't ever stick with one, just keep trying, and you'll find your sport in the end. And I found mine in cycling.
And has it been a case of keeping it in the family to a certain degree? Have you followed your parents or your grandparents in sport, or done something completely different?
Absolutely not. My family aren't really a hockey family. My brother's an athlete and my dad was a rugby player. My mum runs. No, I'm joking. And my mum's very sporty. So I grew up in a very sporty family. You know, from when I was walking, we were throwing balls at each other, and I think I couldn't come home for tea if I couldn't kick a certain amount of conversions. So I think hockey was at my new school, but kind of like Soph was saying, I played every sport from the age of 5. I was trying out anything, couldn't swim, so gave that one up. But yeah, it's just a case of trying what you can, and you'll find something you're good at or something you love, and it's just about pursuing it.
It's quite scientific now, isn't it?
No, I think the so much depends too on teachers and advisors at that stage. You're saying you played hockey at school and things, and certainly the only reason I have the dual thing was my teacher was a hurdles coach, so I did hurdles. They then did a heptathlon when we were away on a course, and they suddenly realised that actually I wasn't much good at hurdles, but I could jump. So I'm afraid that's about as scientific as I got as well.
But just before we take the next question, Paul, again, just going back to cycling, the whole talent idea, do organisations like British Cycling go into schools and basically just get kids out of their PE lesson, and get them on the track? And if one or two of them look like they're naturally predisposed to being pretty decent on the track, give them an opportunity and invite them down? Is that basically how it works?
There have been initiatives that come and go, but that was one that was in and around probably Athens, actually, pre-Beijing, where you're looking to sort of flood the squad, fill it with greater talent. Joanna Rousel was one athlete, and I think even Danny King, where they were literally, that's what happened. They put them on a bike, power tested them very crudely, but then they saw they were in the upper kind of tier of physical ability, and it was just put you on a bike and try and hone those qualities.
Was it a bit like that with Jason Kenny as well? Because he was at school, wasn't he, in the local
area?
Yeah,
probably that generation that we're now seeing successful over a couple of Olympic cycles. That was one way of doing it. It's not happening so much now, because I think we are at the point where there's more naturally people gravitating towards cycling. But as everyone said, everyone does different sports as a child. We do get some cross-training going on within our own cycle, and maybe then there's talent transfer, talent ID with people who are already successful elsewhere. And I think that's a good thing. And as the sports evolve, the connectivity is greater. So I think the communication between sports allows that to happen very, very quickly. Best example is someone like Katie Marchant, that was a medalist in Rio, but 4 years ago was a heptathlete. So physically you've got the ability, the engine, if you like, and it's just about the skill set and the opportunity. So
she was a very good heptathlete as well, wasn't she?
Yeah, like international level.
Coach.
So I think it shows us the ability to train, the ability to be an athlete, and it's just that balance of, do you enjoy the sport because you do well at it, or do you just do the sport because you enjoy it? I think I personally enjoy doing well as enjoying the sport and the training. So it's that just finding that balance that works for individuals.
Next question, please. From over there towards the edge.
In sport, what do you do outside your sport to do training?
What do you do? As well as sport, or
Yep.
other types of training?
What type of fitness training do you do?
Yeah. Me, not a great deal, to be honest. Bit of running, 2 or 3 times a week for half an hour. But no.
So us hockey players, our gym and our kind of strength and conditioning program is ultimately on injury prevention. So the less time we spend off the pitch, the harder we can train and the more training we can get done. So a lot of it is focused on sort of making sure our bodies are able to cope with the demands of hockey. It's not great for our bodies. It's kind of asymmetrical. We're bent over. And during our tournaments, we play sort of a large amount of games. In the Olympics, we played 8 games in 14 days. So we spend a lot of time in the gym, sort of 3 times a week we'll be doing team gym sessions, and then we'll have periods of heavier training where we'll have extra running sessions. We try and get as much fitness done in just hockey training, so we have a stick in our hand as much as possible, but there are times, especially during the winter months, where we just have to get the running done and do some pretty horrible running sessions, but you're doing it for the dream of winning Olympic gold medal, and the hard work you put in, we've found does pay off.
Laura, what's it like for you? Because how much variety is there in the training for you? Because let's be honest, you're just going round and round and round, aren't you, on a track?
Well, for me, even I have less variety because a lot of my training is done at home on a static bike, because I have to train quite a lot without my pilot, which means because I can't see, I can't ride a solo bike. So I spend a lot of time on a turbo in my room at home, just staring at a wall, kind of have to listen to a lot of music and lose a lot of brain cells, really, when you're just sat in one place pedaling for 3-4 hours.
That's quite hard, isn't it, psychologically, to do? Or is it just because that's what you're used to?
It is hard when you first start. It gets easier because you get kind of used to it, but it definitely helps when you know there's an end goal. So I found it much easier in the run into Rio because I knew why I was doing it, and I was doing it to win a gold medal. And so, again, those horrible sessions that you don't really get a lot of pleasure out of, you do them for a reason, and the reason, it pays off in the end. But yeah, we do have a little bit of variety. Like, I'll do quite a bit of strength and conditioning, just, again, similar to what Sophie was saying about hockey. We spent a lot of time kind of crouched over on the bike. It's not very good for our backs, so we have to do a lot of strength work in the gym, stretching, things like that are all kind of key sessions that we need to keep in. So yeah, you mainly do your training for the sport that you're focused on, but then you do have to have a little bit of a variety as well.
I guess the one thing that doesn't change over time is that there are a lot of hard yards that need doing to get to the big event.
No, I think there is, but I think what's come through a lot is the support that is behind these guys, and what is important and what has changed enormously in the years is the accommodation of the whole lifestyle package. So that, be interested. I've got vested interest. I know how Lily's going to handle next all these commitments and your second year exams, Lily, but we'll perhaps touch on that later. But there is a whole, so the coaches will know when there's stresses in other parts of their life and will pull back off training to accommodate if there's an exam sessions coming up, or indeed in private life and things, to make sure that they don't push that injury. And that's a very important part of managing, to make sure they're well going out to train and compete.
And is that very different to the sort of experience that you would have had ahead of Montreal in '76? Would you have just had to get on with it and fit it in around everything else?
Yes. Glasgow University wasn't the most lenient, so I took my finals in June and flew out the next week to the Olympics in July, just straight through. But again, the competitions aren't always the summer, when perhaps students have got time. Lily will face the Commonwealth Games, which will be February, March, right in the middle of term. And what the university is able to do is offer the sort of stretch degree and things that allows them to meet both demands.
Thank you. Another next question.
Congratulations to you all on your fantastic achievements. Have you already started thinking about the 2020 Olympics and defending your title?
Actually, so when we won this, it was quite a legendary Friday night for us. And then, obviously, after the game, we went and had a good night, a fun night, and then we had a team meeting the next day, and we thought it was going to be, relax and enjoy it, and it was basically our coach saying, right, that's it, 2020, winning after winning, and so I think it was put straight in our minds, and obviously after such a success, we're going to have people that decide to move on, and that's just natural. That's what happens in team sports, so we'll have some retirements. But for me personally, I'm the youngest person in the team, so I think if I said I was going to retire, the coach might have a bit of a meltdown. But yeah, for me, my aim is 2020, and I think a few people have said, you know, you've made history. What is there more? Like, what can you possibly do? And the way I kind of think about it is, you can always make more history. There's no team that's won 2 medals in a row, and so there's always that extra bit. And for me and Soph, we've got a home World Cup next year, 2018. So there's always that much more you can strive to. So yeah, 2020 is definitely in my vision, but I can't speak for everyone else.
It doesn't sound as if you sat there at any point and looked at the medal and thought, well, I've done that now. What do I do? What do I do next? You know, that's it. You've achieved the ultimate goal in a sense, haven't you? But it sounds as if you have the motivation to go on and do it again.
It is a weird one, because you spend so much time, so many hours kind of dreaming about it, kind of, you know, literally dreaming, and then sitting down and thinking, this is what I want, this is everything I want in life. Kind of since I was, you know, walking, I've always wanted to win an Olympic medal. So it is a tough one, suddenly thinking, oh God, what do I do now? It's happened. Like, I wasn't ready for this. But yeah, kind of looking at it, there's always more, and we've only got one of these, so there's always more you can win.
What was it like for you after Beijing in 2008, Paul? Because to a certain extent in British cycling, there was always the talk of you're following the process. And if you follow the process and do what you've been taught to do and what you've trained to do, the outcome will occur. So to an extent, you did what you thought you were supposed to do. Maybe you didn't know that you would break the world record in that team pursuit in the way that you did, but do you know what I mean? To a certain extent, you know, I remember Bradley Wiggins saying, I think it was after Athens when he won the individual pursuit, saying, well, you cross the line and you sort of think, well, okay, I don't really know what to do now, because all I've thought about is getting to this point. I crossed the line, okay, I've done it, but that's what I was meant to do.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking, really, when I look back, because, you know, that was 3 Olympics ago, it almost feels like dare I say, a little bit of an anticlimax when you've actually won the medal, when it's been so considered.
That's what I was hinting at, whether there was an element of that.
So thought out, and you've got like the targets and the records and the times are driven by what we think it might take to win. There's no guarantee of that. We've been unable to control strictly what the opposition do in the event we had, but it's just trying to set the bar so high that only we can clear it, kind of thing. But it was that sense of relief, if more than anything, that you've kind of ticked it, probably because I was a much slower learner than people are these days. It took me 3 goes to get there. And yeah, the sense of maybe relief that I was getting older and I wasn't considering another Olympic cycle. So for me personally, it was like, if we hadn't, what would I have done? Would I try to carry on for London? But, you know, that didn't happen. I managed to get the gold we'd worked so hard for.
That was a great full stop for you, wasn't it? Because I remember seeing you that night at Britain House, whatever it was called, in Beijing, and there was no doubt in your mind that, I've done that now.
Yeah.
I've slowly worked my way up, and I'm at a stage in my career where that was the pinnacle.
And I think it's where my personal experience in sport has moved on from is something that everyone sat here will probably understand at some point in their life is that was that time, and now as a coach and inputting into I'm still part of a team. For me, it was a smaller team than the hockey team, but it was still a team, and I was driven and motivated hugely by that commitment to others. And I think that's still what drives me in my job and in sport, and the satisfaction from seeing others succeed. But particularly with a leaning to a team event has been even more rewarding than my own success. That's kind of history for me now, but to be able to come and talk to people and share in that experience of a team event at the Olympics and everything that goes with that has been massively important. And you know, to sort of reference the question was I do need to get the numbers of anyone who's retiring out the women's hockey squad because there's a bit of talent ID there. And then I think that the question before was bit of cycling as cross-training wouldn't probably hurt, and get around to all the appearances. And some of you might want to come back to another Olympics in cycling. So who knows? Who knows?
Good try.
Paul did mention the word relief and anticlimax gently in relation to a gold medal, but Laura, I didn't get the feeling anticlimax sort of came into your mind at all when you won the gold. I must say, commentating on that the other week in Rio was really special, and as much as anything, the look of sheer joy on your face at having won that medal, and the fact that it seemed to me as if most of your family were there as well to enjoy the moment with you. It was actually a really emotional thing to commentate on. And how have you found it? I mean, has it been even better than you thought it might be, being a gold medalist so far?
I think it's lived up to expectation. I went to London and I finished 4th on the track, and then I was on course to win a gold medal in the time trial, but had a mechanical. So because I'd experienced that in London and all so close to getting it and have it snatched away from me, it made me want that gold medal in Rio a lot more. The reason I was so shocked for the pursuit was that I did not think it was possible in the pursuit. I thought it was more possible on the time trial, on the road, because the New Zealand bike, who we beat in the final, they had been dominant since London. They had been unbeatable. They were miles ahead of us in the run-in in the World Championships in the run-in to Rio. So I knew I was capable of a medal, but I never ever allowed myself to believe that I would win gold. So to win it was just incredible, and it took
a long... shock as well as joy then.
It was shock. It was, and I think, like, as I sort of said about London, because I got so close and not got it made it so much sweeter getting it in Rio, and I appreciated that gold medal so much more than if I'd have won it in London. I don't think I'd have appreciated quite how hard it is to get a gold medal. And now I've got one. I just want to continue on and go for more. So
that's good to hear. Next question, please. Over there, about 2/3 of the way back in the middle.
Did you feel stressed before the competition? If so, how could you deal with them? Thank you.
Yeah, I guess the Olympic final, I was definitely a little bit more nervous than normal. I tried to tell myself to kind of just to go out there and enjoy it. Probably might not ever play an Olympic final again, and so they don't come round too often. And I just wanted to go out there and enjoy it. I'd trained so hard for it together the last kind of 4 years, and this is what all the training was for. We were all extremely prepared, so we knew exactly what our roles were and our jobs were, and it was just a case about going out there and ultimately just doing your best, and that's all we could do for each other, was to go out there and give our best for the team.
Yeah, for me, from sort of nerves point of view, I do get quite nervous in the run into a competition, and that's something I kind of highlighted and did a lot of work with the sports psychologist with, and she kind of got me to understand that it is normal to feel nervous, and it's not a bad thing, but when it does start to take control, you just have to kind of go back to what you know and what you're comfortable with, and think about things you can control rather than things you can't control. So even for me, she was saying to me, like, just think about how the bars feel when you hold the bars. Think about how, concentrate on your breathing rather than, oh my God, they've just gone and done that time. I can't do that. That's faster than me. You just have to control the controllable and forget everything else.
Do you have to break it down to the simple? It's still the same size pitch, same number of players. It's basically the same game. I guess it must be quite hard to remind yourself of that on the morning of an Olympic final. But do you have to try and break it down like that to deal with it? Or do you just go out and play?
Yes. Well, I do get nervous as well, but for us, we're a very, very superstitious team. So there's always going to be the same things that happen. So you can kind of, you know, for me, I set my kit out the night before, so that's fine. I'm going to do that, and I'm not going to forget anything. And if you just think about like tiny things, you'll get to the game and you'll play. And then once you're playing, we are so prepared as a team. We had so many, you know, meetings. We were on pitch and off pitch, just more prepared than any other team. So, I mean, it gets to the point we all sit in the same seat on the bus. We all sit in the same seat in the changing rooms. If this does not happen, we will lose. You know, everyone has their own little superstitions, but as a team, we have a very, very set routine, and it's kind of really, it seems very silly, and probably something that some people won't understand, but for us, it's something that we always know is going to be there, and we know that we're going to prepare in the same way, and then at the end of the day, it's another game, and I was more nervous for the first game than for the final, but it's still a game of hockey, and we play every day.
And what's it like when you're actually out there, though? How difficult is it sometimes to maintain those sort of superstitions and people sitting in the same place and doing the same thing? Because you're at the Olympics, you're in an alien environment, and an environment which, if you're not careful, can sort of control you, can't it? Because things are different, and you're not in charge of everything. That happens to a degree.
Yeah, and I think that's something we kind of also, we get told by our sports psychologists. It's absolutely fine to have your superstitions, but if something's out of your control, which means everything's not how you would like it, we kind of have our mental processes to kind of overcome that and be like, okay, it's fine, it'll be all right. But
things in Brazil are different. I think one time on the way to one of our matches, we were on like a road, what you would call here, a motorway.
You didn't end up at the swimming, did you, Valentine?
I mean, we were on an A road and our bus missed the junction. And so we were thinking, okay, it's fine, like, don't worry, we've left plenty of time. We thought they'd maybe take the next junction. He started reversing backwards to get to the junction, which is kind of not what you really need before a game, but things happen and you kind of prepare to be unprepared. I mean, I think everyone always thinks the Olympics, it's, you know, the pinnacle. It's not always perfect, and it's really not, and you kind of learn that when you're out there. Things aren't perfect, and you adjust, and we've had enough trips, and we train enough with different scenarios that we know how to overcome them. We just keep what we can.
We have similar things, actually, even as commentators at the Olympics. You go there thinking that everything's going to be the best and the biggest, and everything will work really well, and it doesn't. For example, at the men's and women's road races, which are at Copacabana, the sun was so bright. We were sitting outside looking at the beach by the finishing line, which you'd think was fantastic, and it was, except the sun was so bright you couldn't see the monitors. So we had to build a little cardboard favela. We had to go into the rubbish, find some cardboard, build a little house effectively, that's when Chris Boardman came in handy, because he's good at things like that, as Paul will attest to. So we built this little house to sort of shield us from the sun, and the monitors that we use, they were the worst monitors I've seen in about 15 years. The picture was so soft that you couldn't make out individual riders in the peloton. You certainly couldn't see the numbers on their backs, which of course is essential when you're looking at 200 riders going along the road. All little things like that. And also the race radio. We have race radio in our ears during the race, which is from within the race, telling us, you know, who's in the breakaway, for example, what the gaps are, whether someone's got a puncture or had a crash. We hear what people in the team cars and within the race here, unless the authorities in their wisdom in Brazil decide the night before to change the frequency and don't tell anyone. So we had a 6.5 hour road race on the Sunday, and we had no idea who was where because we just had silence in our ears the whole time. So across the board, you do have these little things which, when you want it to be the best, you want it to be absolutely spot on, you still find yourself having to deal with various issues, and there was a knowing nod there from you, Laura, to that one. Did you have similar things? I mean, was that, did the coaching staff, did they say to you, you may have to deal with this, you may have a problem here?
Yeah, there was always things that can go wrong. Like for the start of our road race, it got delayed by an hour, so we were on the start line, and what generally happens for our road racing is that the men's tandems go off 5 minutes before us. So they all started fine, and we're stood lining up, and then suddenly they're like, no, we've got to cancel the race, we're calling the men back. So they had to do a lap neutralised of the course because they couldn't get them back. and restart the whole race. So we ended up sat on the side of the road for an hour in the baking sun, and it's just about remembering that it's the same conditions for everyone. It's not ideal, but we're all in the same position, and yeah, we want it to be the best because it's the Olympics and the Paralympics, but in the end it is just another race, and we are out there to have fun. We love what we do. We love riding our bikes or, you know, playing hockey. We love sport, and that's why we're there, and don't ever lose sight of that.
Next question, please. Down here towards the front.
Who was the most inspiring person you met?
The person that inspired the athletes.
I'm going to say our captain, Kate Richardson-Walsh. She's the biggest legend in our sport. She's unbelievable. But not just that, she's probably one of the best people I know, and she's just so kind of caring of every single person, and she's just kind of epitomizes what I think sports people should be. She's just an inspiration to everyone, and I think that's quite big. I think kind of talking about a friend, I think she's just an inspirational person. I think she deserves this medal more than anyone. She's been in the squad since 1999, and we did it on our first time, so she probably hates us a bit, but it's so amazing that we could do that for her, and she's now retiring, so I'm just so proud that we could be part of her winning that medal and see her out of the sport, because she will go down as just an absolute legend in our sport. So for me, yeah, it's our captain.
Paul?
Similar, really. I think it's people within my sport, people you see sort of suffering every day, training really, really hard every day. I've always thought that answer to that question it lies with the people you see and their commitments really close to home. So I think the athletes you work with, but also the commitment of some of the staff is it's a kind of lifestyle choice, really. You put in so much in, and I think like someone like Sir Bradley that I went to all of those games with, and he's ended up doing 5 as an athlete, and rough and the smooth over a 20-year period attending Olympics. It's not all going to go your way, yet he's managed to find a way to succeed and manage his own expectations and others' expectations and contribute so much.
Is there an element for all of you where when someone who you know quite well achieves something, it makes you think, well, if they can do that, there's no reason why I'm not able to achieve that?
Yeah, I think that's a very obvious what's going on with British cycling, because it's, success breeds success, and we're in an environment, day in, day out. The Paralympic cyclists and the Olympic cyclists train together, and we see each other achieving, and we see each other winning goals, and if they can do it, I do the same training as them, I use the same bike as them. There's no reason why I can't do it. And there is definitely evidence that being surrounded by success only breeds more. So definitely, you do get inspiration from the people around you.
I think that was a feeling that was definitely hit the nail on the head, really, from Sydney. Jason Quealy, I think was it day 1, kilo, and we'd set out. It was very early in the funded days, and with performance plans evolving very quickly in sports, and the aspiration was to try and win a medal, not guarantee that you're going to win a gold or go with any other loftier ambitions. It was try to win a medal in my event, and we had Jason Quealy win the individual kilometre time trial in the Sydney Olympics. If it wasn't day 1, it was day 2, and it answered. As Lorna said, it was a you can do moment, you can achieve, and for us to then go on and win a bronze medal, it showed that you really could achieve it, and it was a really kind of clarifying moment in my life of this is definitely possible. You fulfil an aspiration to try and win something, and it comes together and move on from there. So that's a really important moment in my life, really.
Before we take the next question, I just want to touch on the idea of the balance between study, which of course ultimately is why you'd be at university, for example, and sport, because many people might say, well, I could never do that because I wouldn't have time to do that. How have you found it? Has it been something that's difficult to manage at times, or has it been a case of almost the more you do, the more you can go on and do? You know, does it help you to organise your time better and to target your time better? Do you think you've really benefited in any number of ways from following a sort of parallel path of doing the studying and the sport as well?
I think for me, studying for my degree and playing quite a bit of hockey, it definitely taught me about the importance of time management. And I think you just had to become very good at managing your time. You had no option. And obviously here at the university, it was ideal. I mean, the amount of time I saved, because in the morning I could be on the pitches training, have a shower, go up to the library, go to my lectures, pop to the gym, then in the evening go back and train. And then everything was so close together, I wasted no time travelling, and that, to be fair, made a huge difference in the amount I could fit in and the amount of time I could dedicate to my studies, but also my training. And definitely it was hard. You had to be extremely focused, but as long as you managed your time and you kind of planned ahead, it made everything a lot easier.
I should say that they're too embarrassed to say it, but they're all outstanding academically as well as sitting here with gold medals. And I think one does balance against the other. There's no doubt you have to manage your time well, but sometimes if something's not going well in your studies, then your sport will be going well, or vice versa, and there's some balance throughout. But I think our record at university has shown that those who become sports scholars or things at university do not fall behind in any way with their academic achievements. They do extraordinarily well.
Because obviously the university wants to fare as well as possible in terms of academic achievement and in terms of research, for example, but sport is also a very important part of life at university, surely.
It has to be, and although we have the wonderful elite here, it's also very much part of our participation and involvement in sport at the university in terms of inter-hall competition and aspects like that. So it is an important part of life at whatever level you play. It's just as serious for those who are knocking the pan out doing an inter-hall competition. So it is a core of where we are, really.
Let's take another question from the floor. Lady down there, please.
Hi, I'm asking this with half an eye to the future as a parent of two very sporty children. Obviously, it's hard to decide, to make the decision about where to go to university, kind of for all of us. I just wondered kind of what percentage of you choosing to come to Birmingham was to do with how they could support you to pursue your sporting career, and how much was to do with kind of the course you wanted to do?
I guess first of all, I should say they should come to Birmingham. I think for me, we as a hockey team are the only team that are in the Premiership in the main league, which was a massive deciding factor for me. It's such a good opportunity to come to such a good university and also play such a high level of hockey. And I mean, it's so good because, like you said, talent breeds talent, and it means we have more players coming in, the better we get, and we've got now this kind of ultimate super young, super talented team, which is brilliant, and so, I'm so happy to be part of it. But then also, kind of hockey was the reason I did look at this university, and I came here, and I was just like, it's brilliant. And I think everybody that goes here wants to tell people to come here, and I think it's weird, like the amount of siblings that my brother's also here, and the amount of people I know that siblings also go, because you almost feel like you want to tell people to come here. It is brilliant. But yeah, it's for me, it was a place where the academic is so great, and the hockey and sport and kind of support around sport. And for me, it is a massive factor of why I'm sat here with an Olympic gold medal. Is, for me, studying is an escape. University here is an escape from, sometimes you need time away from hockey and from that life. And for me, you know, even if it was something as small as going to Costa and doing a lab report was a massive, massive escape. And it meant then I could come back and I'd be dying to get on the pitch and play, instead of, I can get very obsessed with hockey and that life, and it's very important to have something there. And I'm very lucky. Phil, my coach, is very understanding of when things get a bit much and I maybe need to take a training session off, and kind of having that team here and then that team there. It's just, I feel unbelievably lucky and privileged to have that, and it's definitely kind of the reason I'm sat here.
Laura, what was the decisive factor for you? Was it just the course, or were there other reasons to come to Birmingham?
For me, as I wasn't really an elite level of sport when I came to Birmingham University, the deciding factor for me was the support that Birmingham University offered to me as being visually impaired. It's one of the best in Britain, especially for the course I did in physiotherapy. That was my main deciding factor. But when I came to have a look around the campus, I just fell in love with the place. I love how it's all very compact. You know, everything. It's got everything. It's even got its own train station. And you know, you're in a bubble here, and it's a brilliant bubble to be part of, and it's like a massive family. And I'm really pleased to be back here. And you know, I had such a great 3 years, and it was while I was here that I did take up cycling. And my final year at university, the physiotherapy staff were all very supportive of me and flexible with my degree. I had to have a extension to my dissertation because I had competitions that year. I'd had a World Championships, and I couldn't have asked for more from them to give me the opportunities that I did get while I was here.
Well, great endorsement there for the university. Next question, please. Just down here.
Thank you. This is for Paul and Professor Nimmo. I was wondering, the first Olympics after you competed, what was it like mentally to see everyone competing and not be competing yourself? I know you did some coaching capacity, so you were still there, but not being an active part of it.
For me, the critical sort of thing to note was the decision to retire. I think once I did choose to retire, then that was it for competing for me. And it was, I know what you sort of think. Some of my teammates were then competing in London, and it crossed my mind: could I be competing there? Could I have won another gold medal and gone on to kind of match my Beijing achievement? For me, it was all the other things of injury and the things you had to go through to get the gold medal in Beijing. So I didn't really think about it too much in London. I certainly had thoughts about it in the intervening years, but by the time London came around, I was so pleased to be involved in London Olympics, because when I retired, I took 12 months out. I wasn't intending to be a coach. It kind of like that opportunity opened up for me sort of 12 months later, so I was really thankful to be involved in an Olympics in London in whatever capacity.
Because you were looking at moving your professional career or your other career forward, weren't you, initially?
Yeah, it was in construction. It was actually in the construction management. So, yeah, I had sort of 12 months or less, no more like 9 months in the real world, and then came back to sport very quickly. But
was that company involved in the velodrome?
Yeah, they actually got
so you built it and then coached in it.
And but yeah, I think the opportunity, it was that 12 months actually working with you, Simon, in that Poland Worlds, 2009. And it suddenly feels very quickly you're outside that bubble of sport that has been your home. And
is that what drove you back
I was not working with you.
It was that bad. Once only, you didn't want to do it
I felt kind of weirdly, you know, when you are in a comfortable environment and at home, as it were, it felt really odd to be outside that bubble. So I guess I didn't have to face that. I'd probably been worse sat at home watching the London Olympics on the telly, not being involved. So I'm really thankful to have been there in whatever capacity, but to be coaching and inputting on performance and seeing performance kind of unfold in front of your eyes was really, really special.
What was going through your mind? And it would be Moscow, wasn't it, in 1980?
Yeah, so I was well out of it by then, I think. I think immediately I came back from the Olympics, I decided that was it. And I started my PhD. So I didn't go near the track then. So I tried other sports. It was very clear why I did long jump, yeah. Have no hand-eye coordination whatsoever. They used to put me out in the squash court with my GB tracksuit on and say, just stand there and look the part. But no, I took myself out totally and just went down a different path.
And hopefully the three in the middle, of course, will be in action in Tokyo in 4 years' time. Next question, please, from the floor. Over there, halfway back. Little lady there.
How old were you when you started sport?
How old were they when they started sport? Yeah. How old are you when you started sport?
16.
16. That's quite late, isn't it?
Yeah. A bit late in everything, Simon. A bit slow.
So how old are you? 7. I was probably similar age, really, learning to swim. That was when you chuck you in a pool and away you go. That was it. It's like that was just sort of first sort of go at doing some sort of physical activity, and it would probably been like, oh, you're quite good at that. Come back next week, and that was it. Like start training, start competing.
So they threw you in the swimming pool and told you to get out and ride a bike instead. Any advance on 7? Anyone beat 7?
I think I just was always playing sport. I think I was one of those like really annoying, over-energetic kids.
You mentioned your family as well being very sporting.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I didn't actually start playing hockey till I was 13. So I was actually quite a late starter. I started at my secondary school. So, but yeah, I was lucky enough to pick it up quite quickly. But that's reasonably late.
What age can you start to play organised hockey?
7.
It would be about 7.
Sign up.
Yeah.
And Laura, how about you?
I started in athletics when I was about 9 or 10. I did my first competition, I think I was 11 or 12. And then when I was 17, I kind of wanted a bit of a break from athletics because I'd done it for so long. And then I was 20 when I took up cycling, so a bit later. So it just, you don't need to have done sport since you were a child to get to be good at it. You can take it up whenever and still get enjoyment out of it and still be good at it.
You're certainly old enough if you're 7. What sport are you really into at the moment? Oh, we need the microphone back. Quick. Is there one sport you really like?
Hockey.
Hockey.
Tennis, gymnastics, swimming, and...
Wow, that's lots to be getting on
Loads.
with. Well, yeah, you'll get out there and enjoy it. That's the main thing. Enjoy your sport, and then you can decide later on which one you want to really specialise in. Another question? The gentleman at the front. I need to try and go towards the back of the room as well, but the lights are really bright, so I'm sorry if you're saying, why is he not coming to me? I can't actually see very well at the back because the lights are so bright, but I'd like to go to the back of the room as well, if I can.
This is for everybody. When you were at Rio, obviously with the success of all the other sports, were you inspired by that, or did you know that was going on? Because in the hockey, Lily and you, Sophie, you had 8 games in 14 days. Did you know how well the other sports were doing, and were you inspired by that? And the same for you, Laura, as well.
Yeah, I found it quite hard actually because you see your other Team GAB athletes being extremely successful fairly early on in the 2 weeks. So I remember when Adam Peaty got his gold medal, and then they started rolling in, and you knew that you just had to keep focused on sort of it game by game and not look too far ahead, but kind of knowing that we weren't going to get to the medal stages if we got there till later on. And yeah, you were kind of like, oh, you were inspired. You wanted to be part of the success. And outside the block there was a sort of big medal poster, and every time we won a medal, a photo would go up and the name and the colour of the medal would go up, and day by day you'd just see it get bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually, yeah, ours was up there.
Yeah, for me, because I was the fourth and final day of track cycling, and pretty much everyone who'd raced before me had, you know, before that day, on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they'd all won gold medals, and I was sat in the village watching it on the TV going, oh my God, you know, I want one of them, I want one of what everyone else has got. And it was pressure, but you had to learn, you just had to put it to the back of your mind and think, well, you know, I can't allow myself to think about that. And I can be honest about it now, I was terrified of coming away from Rio without a medal, because I'd experienced that in London and I'd found it very hard. When I got home, I wasn't sure whether I would be able to commit to another 4 years of training day in, day out, and not walking away with something to show for it, because most of my teammates from London had walked away with 1, maybe 2 medals, and I did feel very left out. So it was something I knew that I'd have to deal with in Rio. And so again, I kind of mentioned that I did a lot of work with the sports psychologist, and that was another thing that we did sort of talk about and do a lot of work with dealing with. And you know, all that hard work of working with the psychologist did pay off, because I've got these 2 to show for it. But that's the thing that a lot of people do overlook, is yes, you can be physically capable of winning a gold medal, but you've got on the day you've got to be able to control yourself mentally, and you know, it is when it comes down to actually competing, it's 90% in your head and 10% physical.
That's a nice problem to have, isn't it, Paul, as a member of the coaching staff? You know, the issue potentially of not too many of your athletes winning medals, but dealing with athletes who are coping with the pressure of having seen so many of their colleagues perform. You know, has that been a bit of an issue with British cycling, with the athletes and riders, both men and women, doing so well that you've got riders sitting there and watching everybody else win, and the pressure just must surely build on them to think, well, I'm really going to have to step up here.
I think Lorna expressed it really well. The idea of being later in the competition, and when your teammates have already succeeded. Some might have won 2 medals and you're waiting for your event to play out, or you're just later in the schedule. One of the things that we faced was a competition issue within it. It was selection and who would be riding, say, a final, you know, over different rides, whether you'd use everybody or not. We ended up taking somebody and not using them, so they had a different experience to some others.
Because you did have that, didn't you, in your own area with the women's endurance, with the team pursuit. Kira Horn was part of the team.
Yeah.
She was a student here at Birmingham University. She went through the training with all the others, and ultimately, although she was there and she was in the track centre in Rio, she didn't get to ride.
Yeah, and I think everyone has to sort of recognise the pressures of to get you there, that every squad's had a bigger number at some point that's been squeezed down over the years as well. So, you know, without those people at times, you wouldn't have the natural sort of push to sort of succeed. But that's also sport, and but it is one of those things that we had to kind of manage. Not just success. There is another side to it, and that's something I learned as a staff member, that, you know, I think you're focused on yourself predominantly, or I was when I was an athlete, not thinking anything about selection, because obviously in my head I was in the team. But that's not always the case for everyone.
How do you find that? It's a different way of having to operate, isn't it?
It is, but I'm fine with it. I'm like, I kind of think you see a lot, you see everything, you have a lot of data, a lot of reasoning. Sometimes it's more scientific based, but at the end of the day, your gut feel is pretty good most of the time. So you can, you know, between your heart and your head, you know, your decision will be right.
Time for another couple of questions at least. Is there anyone at the back of the room? Yeah, in the middle there, I can see an arm in the air just about.
Hi, I'm curious about what athletes did in Rio Olympics and maybe other Olympics, like apart from taking part in the competitions. Like, do you guys go traveling, like go shopping, or just do trainings? And also, are there any fun stories that you can share with us? Thank you.
So did you have a great and wild time when you were in Rio?
During competition, you're pretty much in a bubble. Like, we could have been anywhere in the world. We were quite literally in the village or at a hockey pitch. We didn't, we actually didn't really do much else. We slept and we ate and we trained, and that was pretty much it during competition. Post-competition, I'm not sure how much I can say sitting up here.
Or how much you can remember, probably.
Post-competition was a lot of fun, and we actually got to see a bit of Rio, which was really nice, and we got to finally kind of catch up with family and friends who we hadn't been able to see throughout the competition, so it was very fun. But Rio itself, it looked nice. I saw some photos, but I'd love to go there one day and travel, but no, to be honest, I didn't see that much of it, but we had a brilliant time, and you're with the team and you're meeting people the whole time, so the village itself it's so much fun. You're walking distance from kind of the dining hall and the entertainment, and you can go and play pool and table tennis, and it's so much fun. And I'm sure it's the same for the Paralympics. You kind of meet people from different sports, and it's so great to and it's just so interesting to know that they're kind of wanting the same things, and they do the same things but just a little bit differently. And I think especially the coaches just love kind of learning off each other and stuff like that. But yeah, it was brilliant, and it was good to kind of make different new friends that kind of do different things.
Sophie, how did you find it?
Yeah, so similar when we were competing those 2 weeks. It was very much, we were there to do a job, so everything was sort of planned around performance. We flew out 10 days before our first game. So in that time, it was very much kind of taking everything in, taking photos and with the Olympic rings in the village, kind of, yeah, taking photos with athletes that you bump into during the dining room, and enjoying that time. And we had a trip out to Sugarloaf Mountain, and the views were absolutely stunning, and that was really nice to go out as a team and to see a little bit of Rio. But very much as a team, we chose not to go to the opening ceremony because we had a match the following day, so that was a no-go. We put on our outfits and watched the rest of the team parade round, and then it was bedtime. And as Lily said, the few days after were a lot of fun, and it was so special to celebrate as a team and with all our family that had travelled out there. It was really special.
Laura, did you have time when you were out there to really try and take it in as one of the the great experiences of your sporting career and life in general, or was it just purely concentrating on the job at hand?
I think it was the same for us in that, before competition, it was about just focusing on why we were there. We were there to race, and so, we didn't want to be out on our feet wasting energy kind of thing. But I did make an effort to make the most of the village atmosphere, and you don't get very many opportunities to go and experience something like a Paralympic village, which, there are some incredible sights to be seen in a Paralympic village, watching how people in different cultures have learnt to adapt to their disabilities, and how they make use of what they've got, and rather than what they haven't got, and it is a fascinating experience. It's great to go and people watch when you're a little bit bored. Just go and sit in the dining hall of a Paralympic village, and you'll see some sights you'll never see again. But my final race was the day before the closing ceremony, so I didn't really get much chance to experience Rio itself. I got the day before the night before the closing ceremony, I got to meet up with my family and we went to, GB has a a bar area laid out where you go for media, and there's also opportunities to have a drink and have a relax and celebrate. So we did do that, and then the closing ceremony and the after party after the closing ceremony was a very big celebration, and that was very good fun. But then it was back home again, and all the celebrations back here, which, you know, it's kind of it's been non-stop since. It's just been one celebration after another.
And how is it for you, Paul, out there this time? Because the boot's on the other foot now, isn't it? Rather than being one of the athletes looking to have a good time having won a medal, you're trying to sort of presumably make sure that everybody behaves themselves most of the time.
I was straight out of there the next day. I left them to it, but
I noticed there was a good sign I saw on Twitter that one of the girls from the Team Pursuit squad put on the bedroom door for the men to read after they'd ridden.
It's something that's everybody's.
Which basically says,
a challenge.
Dear chaps, I know you'll have had a fantastic time. You won't know where you are. This is not your room. Your room is down the other end of the corridor, so clear off.
It's the kind of flip side if you're waiting, isn't it? If you've succeeded early, you can start having a good time earlier, but there's other people still competing, so you have to respect their right to.
But did you and the staff, is that something you did have to actively manage, or do the cyclists, are they normally pretty good?
They were all right, really. I think bar that sign of just a friendly warning from the girls' squad. The facilities we had out there were really good. I thought the BO had done a fantastic job of getting the right balance, the right spacing, the right sort of dynamics on the floors. Maybe that was all sort of done on purpose. And obviously there were some sports that weren't even resident in the village and were coming in basically just to party, if you like, and experience the Olympic Village, but without the weight of expectation leading into their competition. So there's all sorts of things going on there, and whilst we had a very similar experience of no open ceremony, focus on performance, before we even got to left the UK and got to Rio, we did put a montage together that had some of the moments leading into it, and there are a lot of great moments where you're on a training camp or a competition in various parts of the world. So you've had a lot of experiences that have got you there, you know, a lot of positive stuff, and there could be a softening and a days out and lots of different experiences leading into it as well. So that was an opportunity to capture all the work that had gone in, but some of the fun elements as well, and some of the kind of...
Some stirring music with it as well?
Yeah, something and some key words and some music of the rider's choice, but it was a good, fun reminder of like what you've put into this as well, and don't let some of the distractions ruin it ultimately. But there's a lot of good moments to look back on now.
Well, it worked out really well in Rio this summer for you and for everybody up here. So you obviously did yourselves proud, you did your country proud, and you did the university proud as well. So a round of applause, please, for our Olympic and Paralympic gold medalists. And now, just to close, I'd like to invite the Vice-Chancellor up on stage for a few final words. Thank you.
Simon, thank you, and thanks to everyone. One of the things which is wonderful and in its way humbling, actually, is how much this university means to people who've achieved a great deal. And listening to some of the answers to the question, why Birmingham, it reminded me of another occasion when we had a great athlete here, and that was Chrissie Wellington, who was the world Ironman champion, and every time she competed, she broke the world record. And Chrissie came back to be awarded an honorary degree by the university. And when she arrived, she said to me, "You don't know how much this means to me." When she was giving her speech from the platform, she was telling the story about when she was in the sixth form, and her parents had a narrowboat, and they came up the canal, and she saw the university, and she saw the tower, and she said to her parents that this was the university she wanted to come to. And so they moored the boat, and they walked across to Old Joe here. And what was interesting was that this woman, who'd done had an athletic achievement I can't begin to understand doing the Ironman, she broke down in tears as she was telling the story about the University of Birmingham, and we all wondered whether she would be able to go on. That's how much the university means to people who have achieved. And as they achieve, we achieve with them. As we achieve, they achieve. And it's a wonderful metaphor, actually, for what a university is. On your tables, you will have seen that there is a booklet called Leading the Field. It's the history of sport at this university going right back to the founding of the university in 1900. It's pretty hot off the press, so do take it away and read it. It's already out of date because of what these guys have achieved, and it's called Leading the Field, but it could, of course, be called The Road to Rio. And in a sense, what we've been doing this evening is we've been celebrating the next chapter, the achievement of our athletes, those here on the stage and others. But we're already looking forward to the next chapter in sport in this university. In a couple of months' time, we're going to open the new University Sports Centre. It will be the largest sports centre in any UK university, as well as being the best sports centre in any UK university. We'll be opening the new sports pavilion, and the girls were very interested in the sports pavilion and where they could get a drink. You were talking about the rugby players. They didn't know whether it was because they wanted to have a drink with the rugby players or because they didn't want the rugby players to be in there while they were having a drink. But a new sports pavilion down on the sports fields just behind me. And this morning at a meeting of the university's estates group, we signed off an investment in new pitches and new floodlighting. We signed off an investment in a new gymnastics facility, actually, down at Selly Oak. And so we are looking forward to the future of the university, where the next generation of great university of Birmingham sportsmen and women will go on to achieve. So thank you all for coming back and sharing. You can see how interested and engaged everybody was in the stories from Rio and in understanding something of what it means to be an athlete who performs at and succeeds at the very highest level. Simon, thanks to you for coming back and for hosting, and thanks to you for everything you do to continue to support this university and sport in the university. Thanks to everyone for coming and sharing in a very special occasion. We'll be back, obviously, in 2020. We'll be welcoming some of you back with your next gold medal, and we'll be welcoming other great Birmingham athletes who achieve in Tokyo. So thank you for joining in the celebration, and can I ask you once again to thank Simon for hosting and to acclaim the great achievements of our Olympians. Thank you.